Alright guys, today we're diving deep into the mysteries surrounding Zoro's birth and his deep connection to the Shimotsuki family in One Piece. Recently, the fanbase has been rocked with the unveiling of new details regarding Zoro's lineage in the SBS section of Volume 105. Moreover, during the Wano Country arc, it's emphasized that Zoro has a special background, being linked to the lineage of a Wano Country's noble family, and its significance is being unveiled. Today, we're going to bundle up the long-discussed tales about Zoro's birth and his connection to the Shimotsuki family, presenting you with some fresh insights. If the theories discussed in this video resonate with you, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And for those of you with new theories or perspectives, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Be cautious while watching, as this video contains spoilers up to the most recent episodes. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. In the narrative, the earliest discussions surrounding Zoro's life occurred in Volume 1, Episode 5. Here, the story of Zoro and his best friend Kuina was depicted for the first time. Kuina is the beloved daughter of Koshiro, the master of the Isshin Dojo. Young Zoro also attended, and the two were childhood friends who always honed their skills at the dojo. Kuina was older than Zoro and was exceedingly strong. Zoro always ended up losing. Zoro fought using a two-sword style since those times, but he always lost, leading to moments where he shed tears of frustration. However, Kuina once confided in Zoro about her concerns of being a female, that there would be gender disparities as they grew up, and that she might lose someday, making her dream of becoming a sword master unattainable. Zoro encouraged her by saying, "One day, either you or I will definitely become the world's greatest sword master. Let's compete to see who can achieve it." But one day, Kuina died in a tragic accident, falling down the stairs. Following Kuina's death, Zoro made a vow to become the world's greatest sword master. He then adopted Kuina's sword, the Wado Ichimonji, and began to pursue the path of the greatest sword master using a three-sword style. And the same chronological story was depicted in Volume 102, Episode 1033. 13 years ago, narration introduced East Blue, the home village of Zoro named Shimotsuki, and Kozaburo Shimotsuki appeared as the village's old man. Zoro remembered the old man from the village he interacted with without knowing his name when he was a child, realizing that the individual was the swordsmith Kozaburo Shimotsuki. The three swords Zoro used in the battle in Wano, Wado Ichimonji, Sandai, Ketetsu, and Enma all originated from Wano and were connected to the Shimotsuki family. This was the first major depiction of Shimotsuki village in two parts in the main narrative. Next, we will discuss including the SBS sections. Undoubtedly, the story of the Shimotsuki family in Volume 96 was the turning point that significantly ignited the questions about Zoro's origins. In the Wano Country arc, the lineage of the great daimyo family, the Shimotsuki, made an appearance. Here, Mr. Oda answered a question about whether there is a relationship between Zoro's hometown East Blue, Shimotsuki village, and Koshiro. That illustrated diagram has been cited many times already, hasn't it? Kozaburo Shimotsuki created Enma and presented it to Odin, the heir to the Kozuki family, another great daimyo family. He illegally left Wano Country 55 years ago and ventured out to sea. After embarking on a great adventure in the New World, he landed in a place in the East Blue. He saved the people from bandits in that land, and while teaching swordsmanship in that village, he fell in love and decided to settle down, thus establishing Shimotsuki village. As a result, Koshiro was born as Kozaburo's son, and Kuina was born as his granddaughter, which we all came to understand. At this point, there was no mention of Zoro yet, and the explanation only covered how Shimotsuki village was established. Only the relationship between Kozaburo and Koshiro was mentioned, with a slight hint about Zoro's lineage. Hinting only, without concrete details. Then comes the SBS in Volume 101. Here, there was a question about the real name of a certain character who appeared in Yamamoto's past story. And since this person resembled Zoro, could he possibly be Zoro's father? In response, it was clearly stated that his real name is Shimotsuki Ishimaru, and that he is not Zoro's father. Additionally, it was noted that I'm still undecided whether to illustrate Ushimaru's lineage or keep it hidden, so I'll hold off on that. They do look alike, don't they? Moreover, in episodes 1023 and 1024 of the same volume 101, his story is heavily featured. First, the conversation between Hyogoro and Kawamutsu in episode 1023 after seeing Zoro. He was supposed to be a pirate from overseas. It's strange. He bears a striking resemblance to the young daimyo Shimotsuki Ushimaru of Ringo. Indeed, even his swordmanship is the same. Ushimaru was a great swordsman and a descendant of the sword god Shimotsuki Ryuma. It feels like fate that he returned to the Shusui, to Wano country. Even the fact that Ryuma was a one-eyed samurai. The two strongly felt Ushimaru's resemblance in Zoro, even finding similarities with Ryuma. In the following episode 1024, Ushimaru himself appears, depicting that he was imprisoned with young Yamamoto at a place called Sacred Cave. In order to connect Oden's logbook, which Yamamoto had, to the future, they broke out of prison, challenged Kaido, and were defeated. The readers were getting anxious as the real identity remained unknown. However, in Volume 101, SBS, Oda-san, who had been hesitating whether to reveal or conceal Ushimaru's lineage, has made a decision. In Volume 105, SBS, regarding the section that received numerous questions, what is Zoro's lineage in the end? He announced, I think it won't be explained in the main story anymore, so I will reveal it, and explained it with a family tree included. There was a title called Zoro's Family Tree, and below it, a family tree starting from Kozaburo was listed in full view. Shimotsuki Kozaburo created two famous swords, Wado Ichimonji and Yamaroshi, and presented the latter to Oden when he was 4 years old. This was 55 years ago. Then, 3 years after illegally leaving Wano country, 52 years ago, he settled in East Blue and established Shimotsuki village. Shimotsuki Kushiru was born to a daughter of the village. Shimotsuki Kuina was born between Shimotsuki Koshiro and a certain woman. Then there's Shimotsuki Furiko, who left Wano country along with Shimotsuki Kozaburo. This person is Ushimura's older sister. She started living in Shimotsuki village too, becoming the spouse of Zoro's grandfather, Roronoa Pinzoro, and gave birth to a son named Roronoa Arashi. This Arashi is Zoro's father. Furthermore, a person named Tira, a thief's daughter, is Zoro's mother. Roronoa Zoro was born between these two. Everything connected all at once, didn't it? Ushimura is not Zoro's father. However, they resemble each other, so much so that they seem to have a clear blood relationship. The answer is because Zoro is the grandson of Ushimaru's sister. About 1/4 of Zoro's blood is from the Shimotsuki family. Furthermore, he also answered the question, why is the name Roronoa, even though he was born and raised in Shimotsuki village, created by Shimotsuki Kozaburo? Regarding the matter of not having the Shimotsuki surname, it was because the father's surname was inherited at the parents' stage. Ace, Luffy's brother, was born between Gold D. Roger and Portgas D. Rouge and could claim either surname. However, he decided to go by the surname Portgas out of gratitude to his mother, hiding the surname Gol from Roger's side. Similarly, Zoro's father, Arashi, was a child born between the Roronoa and Shimotsuki families, and decided to take the surname Roronoa, or was named so. This erased the existence of Shimotsuki on the surface, and furthermore, a woman named Tira, a thief's daughter, unrelated to either the Roronoa or Shimotsuki families, appeared. Due to this, there was no longer a reason to name Zoro Shimotsuki Zoro. Kozaburo, on the other hand, had passed down the Shimotsuki surname to his son Kushiro, and it was clearly stated that his daughter, Kuina, also inherited the Shimotsuki surname. This means both Zoro and Kuina are in the Shimotsuki family lineage. In other words, they are very distant relatives. It is not clear whether Kozaburo and Ushimaru and Kozaburo and Furiko are located on the same family tree. However, since they are claiming to be Shimotsuki, if you trace upwards, you'll reach the same ancestors. That is another major point of discussion this time. Up until now, the discussion has mainly revolved around Zoro's birth story. From here on, it involves the entire Shimotsuki family. Let's look at the section in Volume 105 SBS. On the ship that left Wano country, Ushimaru Shimotsuki, who met Yamato during his childhood, was the brother of Fubuki Shimotsuki. He is a descendant of Ryuma Shimotsuki, the legendary samurai of Wano, whom Zoro met in Thriller Bark and was a former lord of Ringo. Therefore, it was a mysterious story of fate that even Zoro himself did not know, as it turned out. Yes, now we must talk about the connection between Ryuma Shimotsuki and Zoro. Zoro's encounter with Ryuma happened in the first half of the Grand Line at Thriller Bark. In Volume 48, Chapter 467, the two fought. So, why was Ryuma in Thriller Bark? 23 years ago, Gecko Moria, who was a rival of Kaido, caused a grave robbing incident in Wano and stole Ryuma's corpse and Shusui, a sword. The corpse of Ryuma was turned into a general zombie by inserting the shadow stolen from Brook by the power of the shadow fruit. Therefore, Ryuma's soul was no longer there, and only his body and beloved sword were resurrected in modern times. The strength of the zombie created by Moria's ability depends on the physical strength of the vessel multiplied by the combat ability of the original owner of the shadow. Therefore, when considering the combat abilities of Brook and Ryuma, it is believed that Ryuma was not fully replicated at his original strength. However, during the fight, Zoro feels it seems like the sword will break if this drags on. The body and spirit that supported the strength of the legendary swordsman are indeed real. It seems that there is still a formidable power emanating even from a real body without a soul. And then Zoro wins this fight and inherits Shusui from Ryuma. Even though it was without the individual's intention, it feels like the sword has been entrusted from ancestor to descendant over hundreds of years, and there are many parts to reappreciate. The common points between Zoro and Ryuma. In Volume 101, Chapter 1023, Kawamatsu mentions that he was a one-eyed samurai, and in Volume 48, Chapter 467, Brook analyzes this. The samurai zombie is moving with my shadow now, but probably was a samurai of great sword in his lifetime. Those two might possibly have the same type of muscular strength as swordsmen. It makes a lot of sense. Zoro was gradually awakening the power of the great swordsman blood that was certainly mixed in, albeit diluted. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there was a hint that the two were of the same bloodline from the time Brook felt they were of the same type. After receiving Shusui, Zoro says, "I'll take the sword, but let's pretend this match never happened. Samurai of Wano." He didn't hear that Ryuma was from Wano, but he probably realized it from the distinctive clothing and hairstyle. Or perhaps he had heard stories about samurai from Kozaburo and Kushiru in Shimotsuki village. Here, such a point might be raised. So, in the end, it's the power of blood, right? Ace is the son of Roger. Luffy is the descendant of the top of the Revolutionary Army, Dragon, and the naval hero Garp. Is everything including strength determined by blood? You might say that. However, I think it's fine that the legendary samurai, Ryuma, has been added as a complementary element to Zoro, a main member and popular character. Zoro has been fleshed out properly, and we would be in trouble if he does not become stronger. But the reason Zoro has become this strong is not simply because he has a high concentration of Shimotsuki blood, right? Be it Shimotsuki or Roronoa, genetic factors are not everything when it comes to Zoro's strength. Rather, what has made him so resilient is his own training. Zoro has continued to hurt his body by being more stoic and strict with himself than anyone else. He rejects King's claim that you can't beat me as a living being by saying, I hate that kind of excuse the most. And it's Zoro who has carved out a path with the skill of the sword polished through his own training, isn't it? Zoro, who carries Shimotsuki blood, and Zoro as part of the Roronoa lineage. It's not that, but Zoro, who has been persevering all this time, losing both his parents and a dear friend. Because of that, even when the talk of lineage and blood comes in, Zoro himself does not falter, and it only makes him shine more brightly. And then there's the matter of personal aptitude. In the battle with Kaido, there was a depiction of Zoro awakening the Conqueror's Haki. However, this awareness has not yet sprouted within him, and he seems to be using it unconsciously. In terms of the aspect of the Conqueror's Haki aptitude, the possibility that it is linked to the Shimotsuki bloodline seems quite high. But, as I keep repeating, whether or not he can cultivate this aptitude depends largely on Zoro's personal training. Like Ace, who strongly inherited the blood of a powerful person, it might be possible to awaken it from a young age. However, it was essential for Zoro to undergo his previous training in order to fully unleash his Haki. So, on one of the factors drawing out this Conqueror's Haki, and an even stronger armament Haki, could be the swords, don't you think? In Volume 11, Episode 97, when Zoro gets the Sandai Katetsu, he says, let's see which is stronger, my luck or the curse of Sandai Katetsu, risking one arm to take the Katetsu. In Volume 12, Episode 108, during the battle at Whiskey Peak, he refers to it as a troublemaker, treating it like a needy child. In Volume 50, Episode 489, Zoro carefully honors Yubashiri, which was severely damaged by the powers of Colonel Shu's rust fruit at Ini's lobby. This depicts Zoro dealing with the sword with sincerity, detailed moments interwoven carefully. In Volume 49, Episode 473, shortly after getting Shusui, he tested in the battle against Oars, and the story of Zoro and the swords continues to be detailed. This leads to the encounter with Enma, a sword forged by Kozaburo Shimotsuki. The Wado Ichimonji, too, is a sword that Zoro has been using since childhood, and Sandai Katetsu and Shusui both originated from Wano country as well. And Zoro is within the lineage of the Shimotsuki. There's this expression, this sensation of tools becoming a part of the body, assimilating with the body. However, Zoro has been in such an environment without intending to, laying the groundwork to master using Enma. Normally, except for Odin, those who used Enma would have their Haki drained one-sidedly and exhaust quickly. One must possess overwhelming Haki, and mastering it was considered difficult. But Zoro felt a sense of harmony the moment he grasped it. This is because he had been continuously using the Wado Ichimonji, Sandai Katetsu, and Shusui until then. In addition to this, the reason Zoro could withstand the release of Enma's Haki is probably because he consistently continued his strength training and forging. And particularly in the case of Shusui, like Enma hosting Odin's Haki, it seems to retain Ryuma's Haki, or something close to it. I think this has been helping in drawing out Zoro's power to some extent. Probably each sword has such characteristics, and great swordsmen who leave their mark on history are born through the synergistic effect of the user's power and the power of the sword. More than blood relations, through the tangible power of a certain sword, I think Zoro is becoming an entity surpassing Ryuma, the legend he left of dragon slaying. This is somewhat achieved through slaying the dragon at Punk Hazard and cutting down Kaido, a user of the fish fruit in Wano. However, Zoro has not yet achieved the feat of producing a black blade as a swordsman. Shusui was a black blade, but it was only Zoro using what Ryuma turned into a black blade. Continuously using a sword before becoming a black blade and transforming it into a black blade. I think when this is achieved, Zoro's power as a swordsman will finally be on par with Ryuma and Mihawk. To cause this, of course, Zoro's personal stoicism is necessary, and the lineage will play a role like training wheels. Both birth and upbringing are essential. Not only Zoro, but other characters are also steadily climbing to greater heights. Therefore, I think that considering this story when witnessing Zoro's growth allows you to perceive something deeper. So this time, we've thoroughly investigated Zoro's birth and the Shimotsuki family. But how was it, everyone? That's it for today. This channel posts summaries, explanations, and ranking videos related to One Piece. If you like One Piece, we would be happy if you could support us by subscribing to our channel and commenting. Thank you for watching till the end. See you in the next video.